Zolani was a calm and hardworking young man who grew up in the busy township of Mabure, a place filled with loud markets, rushing taxis, and people chasing their dreams. He lived a simple life, but he carried big hopes in his heart. His father had taught him everything about honesty, patience, and the value of building a future with his own hands. When his father passed away, Zolani felt the world grow heavy, but he stayed strong because he believed his father had left him enough to rebuild his path, the family land, some savings, and the tools he needed to start a small workshop. But soon after the funeral, the shock came. Zolani discovered that his cousin Kabelo had quietly changed everything. Kabelo had taken advantage of Zolani's grief and confusion. He had manipulated documents, forged signatures, and registered every part of the inheritance under his own name. What belonged to Zolani, the land he grew up on, the money meant to secure his future, the tools passed down through generations, had all been claimed by someone he trusted. Zolani felt betrayed in a way he had never known. The pain was not only about losing property, it was about losing family loyalty. Mabure was small, and news traveled fast, but Kabelo walked around proudly, acting as if nothing was wrong. Zolani tried to speak to him, hoping Kabelo would feel guilt or shame, but Kabelo looked him in the eyes and pretended he had done nothing. He laughed, bragged, and behaved as if he had earned everything. That hurt Zolani the most. The calm young man who always avoided conflict now felt something burning inside him. Not anger, but a strong desire to stand up for what was right. He could not let his father's lifetime of work disappear into someone else's greed. He could not let lies win over truth. So Zolani decided he would fight back, not with rage but with determination. He began asking questions around the township, gathering small pieces of information, and looking for anyone who had seen Kabelo's strange activities. People respected Zolani, and some whispered quietly, offering support. Step by step, he started uncovering the truth. The more he learned, the clearer it became that Kabelo's plan was built on weak ground. And Zolani, with his quiet strength, was ready to expose everything and reclaim the life his father wanted for him. Kabelo flaunts his new wealth, throwing loud parties in the center of Mabure, buying flashy clothes, and inviting people to celebrate what he proudly called his success. Music blasted through the streets, and crowds gathered around him, cheering as he boasted about everything he had taken. Whenever he saw Zolani nearby, he made sure to mock him loudly, calling him too weak and too soft to fight back. Kabelo enjoyed humiliating him, using every moment to remind the township that he had won. People watched quietly, some feeling sorry for Zolani, others too afraid of Kabelo's sharp tongue to say anything. Zolani silently walked away each time, choosing dignity instead of arguing. He refused to lower himself to Kabelo's level, even when the words cut deeply. His steps were slow, but his heart felt like it was burning. The betrayal sat heavy inside him, like a wound that refused to heal. He remembered the days when Kabelo used to eat in their home, laugh with the family, and act like a brother. Now that same person stood proudly on stolen ground, laughing at the one who had shown him nothing but kindness. Every insult Kabelo threw felt like another crack in Zolani's trust. Yet Zolani kept his face calm. He never shouted back. He never defended himself in public. He simply turned away, but inside, he felt a fire growing stronger every day. He knew he could not carry this pain forever. He knew he could not let this injustice continue. Kabelo's behavior, instead of breaking him, was shaping him into someone braver than before. Each moment of humiliation pushed Zolani closer to a decision he had been avoiding. He would rise, and he would take back what truly belonged to him. Even though he walked alone, his silence was not weakness. It was preparation. It was control. It was the calm before a storm he could no longer hold back. Mabure might have seen a quiet man turning away, but inside him, something powerful was awakening. The more Kabelo bragged and humiliated him, the clearer it became that the time for patience was ending. Zolani's dignity was not a shield, it was strength, and soon, that strength would guide him to reclaim everything that was stolen from him. With nothing left, Zolani starts working at a small repair workshop tucked between old shops and dusty pavements. The place is cramped, noisy, and always smells like metal and engine oil, but it becomes his only shelter. The owner allows him to sleep in the back room, a tiny space with a thin mattress and a flickering bulb. Still, Zolani never complains. He wakes up before sunrise, washes his face with cold water from a bucket, and begins his day with quiet determination. He works harder than anyone around him, focusing on every screw, every wire, every broken piece placed in his hands. People first come with small things: a radio that will not turn on, a stove that refuses to heat, a bicycle chain that keeps slipping. Zolani studies each problem carefully, using the little knowledge his father once taught him, and teaching himself the rest. Soon, something surprising starts happening. Every item he touches begins working better than before. Customers leave amazed, telling others about the young man who can fix anything. Word spreads through Mabure like fire on dry grass, and soon more people bring their broken belongings to him. Some come from far corners of the township, curious to see the quiet worker who never smiles too much but always sends them home satisfied. Zolani does not seek attention, but the attention finds him anyway. His dedication becomes a story people whisper proudly, saying he works as if he breathes life back into things that were once useless. He repairs radios with gentle hands, tightens loose wheels with steady focus, and even brings old appliances back to life with skills no one expected from someone who had lost everything. Day by day, he creates a new reputation, not as the man who was cheated, but as the man who rose again through hard work. Even though he sleeps in a tiny room and eats simple meals, he feels a small spark of hope growing inside him. The workshop becomes more than a job. It becomes a place where he rebuilds himself piece by piece, just like the machines he repairs. The more he works, the more he realizes that talent and patience can open doors that betrayal tried to close. And while he never speaks of Kabelo, deep inside he knows his journey is only beginning, and every repaired item brings him one step closer to a future he refuses to let anyone steal again. Word spreads that Zolani is the most reliable repairman in Mabure, and soon the whole township knows about the quiet young man who can bring any broken item back to life. Every morning, people begin lining up outside the workshop even before the sun rises. Some carry old radios wrapped in cloth, some hold rusty irons, some push bicycles with missing parts, and some arrive simply because they heard stories about how Zolani never gives up on anything brought to him. The small workshop becomes so busy that people wait patiently for hours just to see him. They trust him not only because he is skilled, but because he treats every customer with respect and every item with care. The growing crowd surprises even the workshop owner, who starts relying on Zolani more than anyone else. But Zolani stays humble. He keeps his head down, works with full focus, and uses every coin he earns carefully. He avoids unnecessary spending, choosing instead to save little by little. Each night, after the busy rush ends, he sits alone in the back room counting his earnings, dreaming of a place where he can build something that belongs truly to him, something no one can ever take away again. His hard work becomes his strength, and the trust people give him becomes his motivation. Within months, his savings grow enough to take a brave step. He rents a tiny space near the main street, a spot with more sunlight and more room than the back of the old workshop. With simple tools and a sign he paints himself, he opens his own shop and proudly names it Zolani Fix-It Center. The name spreads fast. Locals smile when they see it, happy that the young man who once had nothing now has a place of his own. Customers who once lined up at the old workshop now rush eagerly to support him, bringing even more repair work, telling friends and family about his new shop. The small center becomes a symbol of hope in Mabure. People admire how Zolani rose from loss and betrayal to build something with his own hands. He stands behind his counter every day, welcoming customers with calm confidence, knowing that every repaired item is another step toward the life he is building. His journey grows stronger, and Mabure starts seeing him not just as a repairman, but as someone who turned hardship into strength and dignity into success. Kabelo's flashy lifestyle collapses faster than anyone expected. The loud parties stop, the music fades, and the expensive clothes lose their shine. After months of showing off and trying to look powerful, he puts his money into a business deal that promises quick profit. The people behind it speak sweet words, show fake documents, and convince him that he will become even richer. Blinded by greed and pride, he signs everything without thinking. But the deal is a trap. Within weeks, the money disappears, the investors vanish, and Kabelo is left with nothing but papers that mean nothing. Mabure hears the news quickly, and the same people who once cheered for him now whisper behind his back, His so-called friends, the ones who ate his food, danced at his parties and praised him loudly, disappear the moment trouble arrives. No one answers his calls. No one visits his home. They act as if they never knew him. Kabelo feels the weight of loneliness for the first time. The streets where he once walked with pride now feel cold and empty. He cannot hide his downfall because everyone sees it. His arrogance has melted away, replaced with fear, confusion, and shame. He tries to fix the damage, but every attempt fails. Bills pile up, debts grow, and the world that once admired him now watches him fall apart. Soon his body begins to weaken. What starts as small discomfort turns into a deep, painful illness that slowly drains his strength. He wakes up tired, struggles to walk, and coughs constantly. He visits doctors, but they cannot identify the cause. They give him medicine, but nothing works. Day by day, he feels himself fading. His once bright eyes become dull, and his voice grows weak. The sickness feels like a punishment he cannot escape. His pride, which once made him feel untouchable, now leaves him helpless and scared. People in Mabure talk quietly about his condition. Some feel sorry for him. Others believe his suffering is the result of his actions. Kabelo sits alone in his small room, remembering how he once mocked Zolani, how he celebrated wealth that did not belong to him, how he ignored every warning sign. Now he has no money, no power, no friends, and no strength. His downfall becomes a lesson the whole township can see clearly. Everything built on lies eventually collapses, and everything taken through greed eventually returns with pain. One evening, Zolani hears a weak knock at his shop door just as he is closing for the night. The sound is so soft that at first he thinks it is the wind, but then it comes again, slower and shakier. He walks over and opens the door carefully. Standing in front of him is Kabelo, thin, weak, and almost unrecognizable. His clothes hang loosely on his body. His eyes look tired and sunken, and he struggles even to keep himself upright. The man who once walked through Mabure with loud confidence now looks like he could fall at any moment. Zolani freezes for a moment, shocked to see the cousin who once mocked him now trembling on his doorstep. Kabelo tries to speak, but his voice cracks. He grips the doorframe to stop himself from collapsing. His lips shake as he whispers, "Brother, I have no one left, please help me." The words sound heavy, as if they took the last bit of strength he had. For a moment, silence fills the doorway. The memories rush back, the laughter Kabelo used against him, the stolen inheritance, the humiliation, the long nights when Zolani had nothing but a small room to sleep in. He remembers every painful moment, yet he also sees the broken man standing in front of him now. Kabelo's body sways, and Zolani quickly reaches out to stop him from falling. Even though the betrayal once cut deep, his heart cannot ignore someone in such a desperate state. He feels a mix of confusion, sadness, and something like pity. Kabelo looks at him with eyes full of regret, fear, and helplessness. The proud cousin who once celebrated stolen wealth now stands with nothing but shame hanging on his shoulders. Zolani steps aside and gently guides him inside the shop. Kabelo's legs barely move, and his breathing is slow and painful. He keeps whispering, "I'm sorry. I didn't know it would end like this." His voice cracks again, and he looks ready to break down completely. Zolani listens quietly, not saying much, but his actions speak louder than any words. He sits Kabelo on a chair, brings him water, and watches as his cousin sips it with shaking hands. As the evening grows darker, Zolani realizes something powerful. Even though Kabelo took everything once, fate has brought him back to the one person he hurt the most. And now, in his weakness, Kabelo has finally spoken the truth. The moment becomes a turning point for both men, showing that life can humble anyone, and sometimes forgiveness begins at the door where pain once entered. Everyone tells Zolani to walk away. As soon as the neighbors see Kabelo leaning on him, they whisper harshly, reminding Zolani of all the pain he went through. Some shake their heads and shout from a distance, "Let him taste what he did to you." Others warn him not to waste his time or his kindness on someone who never cared about him. They think it is finally Kabelo's turn to suffer, and Zolani should let him face the consequences alone. Their words echo around him, pushing him to choose anger, pushing him to remember every insult, every loss, every moment he slept hungry while Kabelo lived loudly on stolen wealth. But Zolani chooses compassion over revenge. He looks at the weak man who once stood tall, and he sees not the enemy who hurt him, but a broken soul who has reached the point where pride can no longer hide anything. The bitterness inside him softens, not because he has forgotten, but because he understands that holding on to anger will only create more pain. So instead of turning away, he takes a deep breath, puts Kabelo's arm around his shoulder, and supports his fragile body with both hands. The people around stare in disbelief, unable to understand how someone so wronged can still show mercy. Zolani carries Kabelo inside, letting him rest on a small bed he usually uses for short breaks. He prepares warm food, simple but filling, and gently helps Kabelo eat because his hands shake too much. Kabelo looks guilty with every bite, whispering broken apologies between breaths. Zolani listens quietly, saying nothing, but his silence is not cold. It is steady, patient, and full of understanding. He knows the road to healing starts with small acts of care, even when that care feels difficult to give. When Kabelo grows weaker again, Zolani lifts him carefully and takes him to the town clinic. The walk is slow, and every step feels heavy, but he does not let go. People along the way continue to question his decision, but he does not stop or argue. The clinic staff take Kabelo inside, surprised to see Zolani bringing in the same cousin who once betrayed him. As they begin treatment, Zolani waits outside, quietly hoping that his choice to help will not only save a life, but also break the chain of bitterness that once controlled their story. For weeks, Zolani buys medicine, prepares food, and stays beside Kabelo, never missing a single day. Every morning before opening his shop, he stops by the clinic to check on him, making sure he has the right tablets and enough water. After work, he returns with warm meals he cooks himself, feeding Kabelo slowly when his hands are too weak to hold a spoon. Nurses watch silently, surprised by the patience and gentle care he gives to someone who once took everything from him. Zolani never complains, never raises his voice, and never reminds Kabelo of the past. He simply does what needs to be done, guided by compassion rather than anger. The same cousin who stole everything now depends solely on him. Kabelo cannot walk properly, cannot eat without help, and cannot sleep without Zolani adjusting his pillows and checking his fever. The man who once walked through Mabure proudly, showing off stolen wealth, now whispers softly when he needs anything. Every time he lifts his head and sees Zolani beside him, something inside him breaks a little more. He remembers the nights he mocked him, the lies he told, the inheritance he claimed as his own. Now the only person standing by his side is the one he wronged the most. Kabelo slowly regains strength, but the shame hits him harder than his illness. His body improves, but his heart feels heavier each day. He watches Zolani's tired eyes, the long hours he sacrifices, and the kindness he continues to give without expecting anything in return. It makes Kabelo feel small in a way he has never felt before. Guilt settles deep in his chest whenever Zolani walks into the clinic with a fresh bowl of food or new medicine. He cannot understand how someone he hurt so deeply could offer such unconditional help. At night, when the clinic grows quiet, Kabelo lies awake thinking about every choice that brought him here. He realizes that the wealth he once treasured meant nothing, and the pride he carried only destroyed him. Meanwhile, Zolani's strength comes from something far greater than money, a heart that chooses forgiveness over revenge. And as Kabelo sits up one evening, feeling stronger for the first time in months, he knows that the hardest part is still ahead, facing the truth, rebuilding what he broke, and finally becoming worthy of the kindness that saved his life. One morning, Kabelo kneels and cries at Zolani's feet, unable to hold back the emotions he has been carrying for weeks. His hands shake, his voice breaks, and tears fall down his face as he lowers his head in shame. He feels the weight of every wrong decision pressing on his shoulders, and the guilt becomes too heavy to hide. For the first time since his fall, he lets himself feel the full truth of what he has done. Zolani stands still, surprised but silent, watching the cousin who once walked with pride now trembling on the floor in front of him. Through his tears, Kabelo whispers, "I stole your future, and you saved my life. I don't deserve forgiveness." His words come out slow and painful, as if each sentence pulls a piece of his heart out. He remembers taking the inheritance, laughing at Zolani's loss, and celebrating wealth that was never his. Now he sees the man he hurt standing in front of him with kindness instead of anger. The realization crushes him. He covers his face with his hands and cries harder, unable to understand how he could ever make things right. Zolani bends down, gently holding Kabelo by the shoulders, and lifts him up. His voice is calm and steady as he says, "We can't change yesterday, but we can rebuild tomorrow." Those words cut through Kabelo's shame like sunlight breaking through dark clouds. Zolani's face shows no hatred, only a deep strength that comes from choosing peace over pain. Kabelo looks at him with wide, watery eyes, shocked that someone he harmed so deeply can still speak with so much hope. In that moment, everything shifts between them. The room feels different, lighter, as if the burden Kabelo carried has finally started to loosen. Zolani's words remind him that even broken relationships can heal if both sides are willing to try. Kabelo wipes his tears with shaky hands, realizing that forgiveness is a gift he never expected to receive. His heart feels raw but open, ready to rebuild what he once destroyed. Zolani helps him sit down and brings water, treating him not as an enemy but as family. For the first time in a long while, Kabelo feels a small spark of hope inside him. He understands that forgiveness does not erase the past, but it creates a new path forward. And as he takes a deep breath, he silently promises himself to walk that path with honesty, gratitude, and a changed heart. Kabelo legally returns the inheritance, signing all the papers to give back the land, the money, and the tools that once belonged to Zolani. But he does not stop there. With the little savings he managed to keep during his struggles, he adds extra funds as a way to make up for the harm he caused. It is not a gesture to erase the past, but a step to show he has changed, and that he is ready to take responsibility for his actions. The people of Mabure watch quietly, amazed that the cousin who once stole and mocked now openly admits his wrongs and tries to make amends. The act is bold, humbling, and deeply moving. Together, Zolani and Kabelo decide to use the land and the workshop not just for themselves, but for the entire community. They open a new space where young people from Mabure can come to learn repair skills, how to fix radios, bicycles, stoves, and other tools. Zolani teaches with patience, showing each student step by step, while Kabelo shares the mistakes he made, warning them about the dangers of greed and selfishness. The workshop quickly becomes a hub of learning and hope. Children, teenagers, and even adults who had lost direction come to watch, listen, and practice. The sound of laughter, hammers, and spinning wheels fills the air, replacing the whispers of jealousy and betrayal that once dominated the township. Zolani becomes a symbol of mercy in Mabure. People talk about him not just as a talented repairman, but as someone who chose kindness when life gave him every reason to be angry. Mothers tell their children stories about him. Neighbors nod respectfully when they see him walking through the streets, and even strangers coming from other towns hear about the young man who forgave the cousin who hurt him deeply. His life demonstrates that strength is not only measured by skill or money, but by the courage to forgive and to turn pain into something positive. As the community workshop thrives, Zolani and Kabelo work side by side, showing that even broken relationships can be rebuilt. The place becomes more than a workshop. It is a living example of redemption, learning, and hope. Zolani smiles quietly as he teaches, knowing that the future he almost lost is now being shared with many. In Mabure, people no longer see just a man who endured betrayal. They see a leader, a mentor, and a beacon of mercy, proving that true power lies in choosing compassion over revenge. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to Nabira Folktales for more amazing African stories. See you in the next video.